The 2002 Bali bombings occurred on 12 October 2002 in the tourist district of Kuta on the Indonesian island of Bali. The attack killed 202 people. A further 209 people were injured. Various members of Jemaah Islamiyah, a violent Islamist group, were convicted in relation to the bombings, including 3 individuals who were sentenced to death. The attack involved the detonation of 3 bombs, a backpack-mounted device carried by a suicide bomber, a large car bomb, both of which were detonated in or near popular nightclubs in Kuta, and a third much smaller device detonated outside the United States consulate in Denpasar, causing only minor damage. An audio cassette purportedly carrying a recorded voice message from Osama bin Laden stated that the Bali bombings were in direct retaliation for support of the United States' war on terror and Australia's role in the liberation of East Timor. On 9 November 2008, Imam Samudra, Amrozi Narasim and Huda bin Abdul Haq were executed by firing squad on the island prison of Nusa Kambangan at 0:15 local time. On 9 March 2010, Dulmatan, nicknamed the Genius, believed to be responsible for setting off one of the Bali bombs with a mobile phone, was killed in a shootout with Indonesian police in Jakarta. Attack at 23:05 Central Indonesian Time on 12 October 2002, a suicide bomber inside the nightclub Paddy's Pub detonated a bomb in his backpack, causing many patrons, with or without injuries, to immediately flee into the street. 20 seconds later, a second and much more powerful car bomb hidden inside a white Mitsubishi van was detonated by another suicide bomber outside the Sari Club, a renowned open-air thatch roof bar located opposite Paddy's Pub. The van was also rigged for detonation by remote control in case the second bomber had a sudden change of heart. The bombing occurred during one of the busiest tourist periods of the year in Kuta Beach, driven in part by many Australian sporting teams making their annual end-of-season holiday. Damage to the densely populated residential and commercial district was immense, destroying neighboring buildings and shattering windows several blocks away. The car bomb explosion left a 1-meter-deep crater. The local Sangla hospital was ill-equipped to deal with the scale of the disaster and was overwhelmed with the number of injured, particularly burn victims. There were so many people injured by the explosion that some of the injured had to be placed in hotel pools near the explosion site to ease the pain of their burns. Many of the injured were forced to be flown extreme distances to Darwin and Perth for specialist burn treatment. A comparatively small bomb detonated outside the U.S. consulate in Denpasar, which is thought to have exploded shortly before the 2 Kuta bombs, caused minor injuries to one person and property damage was minimal. It was reportedly packed with human excrement. A report released on August 2005 by the United States Indonesia Society described the events as follows. The investigators were thus able to recreate the bomber's activities. Amrozi, Idris and Ali Imran had simply walked into a dealership and purchased a new Yamaha motorbike, after asking how much they could resell it for if they returned it in a few days. Imran used the motorbike to plant the small bomb outside the U.S. consulate. Idris then rode the motorbike as Imran drove 2 suicide bombers in the Mitsubishi to the nightclub district in Kuta. He stopped near the Sari Club, instructed one suicide bomber to put on his explosives vest and the other to arm the vehicle bomb. The first bomber headed to Paddy's Pub. Idris then left the second bomber, who had only learned to drive in a straight line, to drive the minivan the short distance to the Sari Club. Idris picked up Imran on the Yamaha and the duo headed back into Denpasar. Idris dialed the number of the Nokia to detonate the bomb at the consulate. The 2 suicide bombers exploded their devices. Imran and Idris dropped the motorbike at a place where it eventually attracted the attention of the caretaker. The final death toll was 202. mainly comprising Western tourists and holidaymakers in their 20s and 30s who were in or near Paddy's pub or the Sari Club, but also including many Balinese Indonesians working or living nearby, or simply passing by. Hundreds more people suffered horrific burns and other injuries. The largest group among those killed were holidayers from Australia with 88 fatalities. On the 14th of October, the United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 1438 condemning the attack as a threat to international peace and security. 2 bodies were never identified and were cremated at Bali in September 2003. Awards. There were many acts of individual heroism. Cusatino Kasi, Hailme, a Wallace and Fortuno-born Australian citizen who was managing the Bounty Hotel in Kuta at the time of the attacks, sheltered survivors in the immediate aftermath of the blasts. He was singled out for praise with the award of the Medal of the Order of Australia on 13 June 2005. Husband and wife Richard and Gilana Paul, who organised a makeshift triage area in the Bounty Hotel's reception area, were both honoured with an OAM. James Parkinson, an emergency nurse, worked alongside Dr. Hogg from Wollongong in the Denpasar Sangla Hospital running the trauma centre for the bombing victims. After he disappeared in Africa and Europe for 3 years, the Governor-General's Department finally tracked him down and awarded Parkinson the Medal of the Order of Australia in 2005. Senior Constable Timothy Britton and Mr. Richard Joyce of Western Australia were both awarded the Cross of Valour for their actions during the course of the day. The Cross of Valour is the highest civil honour and is equivalent to the Victoria Cross for Australia, which is the highest military honour. However, investigators discovered the bomb was made from potassium chlorate, aluminium powder, and sulfur. For the Sari Club bomb with the L-300 van, the terrorists assembled 12 plastic filing cabinets filled with explosives. The cabinets, each containing a potassium chlorate, aluminum powder, sulfur mixture with a TNT booster, was connected by 150 meters of PETN-filled detonating cord. 94 RDX electric detonators were fitted to the TNT. The total weight of the van bomb was 2,250 pounds. The large, high-temperature blast damage produced by this mixture was similar to a thermobaric explosive, although the bombers may not have known this. Suspects. The organization suspected of responsibility for the bombing was Jemaah Islamiyah, an Islamist group allegedly led by radical cleric Abu Bakr Bashir. A week after the blasts, Arab satellite channel Al Jazeera put to air an audio cassette purportedly carrying a recorded voice message from Osama bin Laden saying that the Bali bombings were in retaliation for support of the United States' war on terror and Australia's role in the liberation of East Timor. You will be killed just as you kill, and will be bombed just as you bomb. Expect more that will further distress you. The recording did not, however, claim responsibility for the Bali attack. However, former FBI agent Ali Soufan confirmed that Al-Qaeda did in fact finance the attack. In addition, Hambali confessed that Al-Qaeda had sent him $30,000 to fund the bombings of the 2 nightclubs. The Indonesian chief of police, General D. Bakhtiar, said that the bombing was the worst act of terror in Indonesia's history. Aris Munanda is a Jemaah Islamiyah associate linked to Bashir. He is believed to have assisted the Bali bomber Amrozi in acquiring some of the explosives used in the Bali bombings. Philippine intelligence considers Munanda to be associated with Muhammad Abdullah Suffair, a Saudi national Abbasiyah group in southern Philippines. Munanda is still at large. A report by the United States Indonesia Society describes the arrest of Amrozi and other suspects. General Pastuka ordered his men to make the arrest early the next morning, November. Amrozi was asleep in the rear of the house. According to Greg Barton's account, Amrozi did not attempt to escape, but laughed instead, later exclaiming, "Gosh, you guys are very clever. How did you find me?" Amrozi's mobile phone, a particularly important piece of evidence, was seized during his arrest. Bags of chemical ingredients for bombs were found in his workshop, and soil samples taken from outside his home showed traces of the primary chemical used in the Sari Club bomb. Police found receipts for the purchase of chemicals used to make the bombs, as well as a list of expenses incurred in making the bombs. Further search of Amrozi's home revealed copies of speeches by Osama bin Laden and Abu Bakr Bashir, the radical Indonesian Muslim cleric reputed to be the leader of Jemaah Islamiyah. The speeches exhorted listeners to wage jihad. Police also uncovered training manuals on ambush techniques and numerous articles on jihad. Under questioning, Amrozi revealed the names of 6 others involved in the bombing: Ali Imran, Imam Samudra, Dulmatan, Idris, Abdul Ghani and Umar Partek. But Amrozi's mobile phone proved to be the real catch. Indonesian investigators were able to print out a list of calls he had made immediately before, during and after the bombing, as well as the names and telephone numbers in the phone's memory. Pastaker kept Amrozi's arrest secret for 2 days. After it was announced, Polri monitored the sudden flurry of communications among numbers listed in Amrozi's telephone before the calls abruptly ceased. The investigators were able to identify the location of a number of the telephones, leading to a series of arrests. Indonesian authorities also believe more suspects remain at large. In 2005, Indonesian police arrested 24 additional people suspected of involvement in the Bali attacks and a 2003 bombing of the Marriott Hotel in Jakarta. On 12 October 2005, a story in Australian broadcaster SBS's documentary series Dateline, called "Inside Indonesia's War on Terrorism," argued that the Indonesian military or police may have been involved in executing the attack. On 13 June 2007, it was reported that Abu Dujana, who might have headed a terrorist cell in Bali, was captured just past midnight on 9 November 2008. The 3 convicted of carrying out the bombings were executed by a firing squad. Umar Partek was finally arrested in Abbottabad, Pakistan in early 2011. The U.S. government had offered a $1 million reward for his arrest. Partek is a suspect in other bombings, as well as the one in Bali. Legal proceedings. Initial charges and trials. In April 2003, Indonesian authorities charged Abu Bakr Bashir, the alleged spiritual leader of Jemaah Islamiyah, with treason. It was alleged that he tried to overthrow the government and establish an Islamic State. The specific charges against Bashir related to a series of church bombings on Christmas Eve in 2000, and to a plot to bomb United States and other Western interests in Singapore. He was initially not charged over the Bali attack, although he was frequently accused of being the instigator or inspirer of the attack. On 2 September, Bashir was acquitted of treason but convicted of lesser charges and sentenced to a prison term of 4 years. He said he would appeal. On 15 October 2004, he was arrested by the Indonesian authorities and charged with involvement in another bomb attack, which killed 14 people at the J.W. Marriott Hotel in Jakarta on 5 August 2003. Secondary charges in this indictment accused him of involvement in the Bali bombing, the first time he faced charges in relation to this attack. On 3 March 2005, Bashir was found not guilty of the charges surrounding the 2003 bombing, but guilty of conspiracy over the 2002 attacks in Bali. He was sentenced to 2.5 years imprisonment. The Australian, US, and many governments expressed its disappointment that the sentence was too short. In the outcome, Bashir was freed 14 June 2006, having served less than 26 months for his conspiracy, and on 21 December 2006, Bashir's conviction was overturned by Indonesia's Supreme Court. On 30 April 2003, the first charges related to the Bali bombings were made against Amrozi bin Haji Narasim, known as Amrozi, for allegedly buying the explosives and the van used in the bombings. On 8 August he was found guilty and sentenced to death. Another participant in the bombing, Imam Samudra, was sentenced to death on 10 September. Amrozi's brother, Ali Imran, who had expressed remorse for his part in the bombing, was sentenced to life imprisonment on 18 September. A fourth accused, Ali Gufran, the brother-in-law of Nordin Muhammad Top, was sentenced to death on 1 October. Ali Gufran, alias Mukhlis, told police that he was the head of one of Jemaah Islamiah's 4 cells and had ordered the Bali bombings. He also confessed that her fellow leader Ridwan Nizamuddin, known as Hambali, had provided the funds for the attacks. He told police, "I do not know for sure the source of the aforementioned money from Hambali. Most probably it was from Afghanistan, that is, from Sheikh Osama bin Laden. As far as I know, Hambali did not have a source of funds except from Afghanistan." Another operative, Wan Min bin Wan Mat, revealed to police that he had given Mukhlis money at Hambali's request and that he understood part of the money had come directly from Al-Qaeda. As noted below, all 3 were executed on 9 November 2008. The Australian, US, and many other foreign governments expressed satisfaction with the speed and efficiency with which the Indonesian police and courts dealt with the bombing's primary suspects, despite what they characterized as light sentences. All Australian jurisdictions abolished the death penalty more than 30 years ago, but a poll showed that 55% of Australians approved of the death sentences in the Bali cases. The Australian government said it would not ask Indonesia to refrain from using the death penalty. On 15 August, Ridwan Nizamuddin, generally known as Hambali, described as the operational chief of Jemaah Islamiah, was arrested in Ayutthaya, Thailand, the old capital 1 hour's drive north of Bangkok. He is in American custody in the Guantanamo Bay detention camp and has not been charged in relation to the Bali bombing or any other crime. Constitutional appeals. On 23 July 2004, one of the convicted bombers, Maskur Abdul Qadir, successfully appealed his conviction. He had been tried under retroactive laws which were introduced after the bombing and which were employed to aid the prosecution of those involved in the attack. These laws were used by the prosecution instead of existing criminal laws, as they allowed the death penalty to be imposed and lowered certain evidentiary restrictions. The highest court in Indonesia, the Constitutional Court, found by a margin of 5-4 that trying the terrorist suspects under these retroactive laws violated Article 28I of the Constitution. 2. The minority judges argued that international human rights documents such as the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights allowed an exception to not applying retrospective legislation in the prosecution of crimes against humanity. The majority found that this argument was inconsistent with the text of Article 28I, which states that the rights listed there cannot be limited under any circumstances. Following this decision, charges related to the bombings against Idris, who had confessed to participating in the attacks to the police and court, were dismissed. The legal status of Qadir, Idris and others who might have their convictions quashed following the ruling on the retrospective law is unclear. The Constitutional Court is a relatively new body, created after the fall of Suharto, and this decision was one of the first to overrule the constitutionality of the government's application of a law. Execution of perpetrators. On 24 October 2008. Bali officials announced that 3 men convicted of carrying out the bombings would be executed by firing squad in November 2008. On 25 October 2008, Communications and Information Minister asked the Indonesian media to stop calling the 3 heroes. The Denpasar District Court, on 3 November, accepted a reprieve motion to reconsider the death sentences. Famib Ahmad, a lawyer for the family of Jafar Sodiq, a brother of Amrozi and Mukhlis, stated, "We lodged the judicial review to Denpasar court to question decisions." Lawyer Imam Ismara Hadi stated, "We have lodged an appeal because we haven't received a copy of the Supreme Court rejection of our previous appeal." Indonesia's Supreme Court denied previous petitions for judicial review amid the Constitutional Court's dismissal of the bombers' appeals. Denpasar court official Nenga Sanjaya said the 3-page appeal would be sent to a Cilacap, Central Java court. But the Attorney General's office said on 1 November the execution was very close. Supreme Court Judge Jogasar Woko, however, said of last-minute legal challenge by the relatives of Imam Samudra, Amrozi Narasim and Ali Gufran will not change or delay the execution. They were moved to isolation cells, and execution spots were ready on the Nusa Kambangan Island prison where they were being held. Local Chief Prosecutor Muhammad Yaman said they will be executed simultaneously, but at different locations. Imam Samudra, Amrozi Narasim and Ali Gufran were executed by firing squad after midnight on 9 November 2008. In the final moment, there was no remorse or repentance, and they shouted, "Allahu Akbar," or "God is great," for burial. Mukhlis and Amrozi's bodies were flown by helicopter to Tenggulin, Lamongan, East Java, while Imam Samudra's body was flown to Serang, Banten, amid "Welcome Martyrs" banner displayed at the cemetery. The execution caused high tension and sparked clashes in Tenggulin between hundreds of police and supporters. Indonesian singer and TV presenter Dos Gamalama attended the funeral of Imam Samudra. After praying with the crowd, she spent half an hour in the house of the executed man and spoke with his mother. On leaving, she was quoted as saying, "I'm certain he's gone to heaven." Maruf Amin, deputy chairman of the Indonesian Ulamas Council, the chief body for Islamic clerics in Indonesia, said of the men, "They did not die a holy death. That can only be in a war, and Indonesia is not at war." Long Road to Heaven. In 2006, Long Road to Heaven, an Indonesian feature film about the bombings, was released by Kalyana Shira Films. The film was directed by Enison Senaro and written by Wong Waileng and Andi Logam Tan. It stars Rayleigh Hill, Mira Folks, Alex Komang, Surya Saputra, John O'Hare, Sarah Treleaven, and Josh Ua Pandalaki. It tells the story during 3 different times: the planning a few months before the bombing, its execution in 2002, and the trials in 2003 through the viewpoints of both the victims and the bombers. The story is not chronologically linear, starting with the explosion and then moving from time to time, so as all 3 plots are culminated one after the other. At the beginning of each scene, subtitles tell the date and location of the scene.